The steel walls of the USS Leviathan trembled under the weight of the Pacific's endless pressure, deep in the abyss where sunlight never reached and secrets never surfaced. Inside that cold, humming metal beast, Commander Elias Grant stood like a statue carved from the very ocean's resolve, rigid, precise, unbreakable. But that day, something broke through even his unshakable composure. It wasn't the sonar alarms or the echo of depth charges in the distance. It was her, Lieutenant Mara Hale, standing at attention, her voice steady yet trembling with defiance as she recited a code that only one man on that vessel should have known. His code. The same secret mission identifier that had been classified, buried, and known to no one outside a circle that had long since vanished beneath redacted files and lost soldiers. 3 hours earlier, the mission had been proceeding flawlessly. The Leviathan was gliding silently through a trench, invisible to every radar on Earth. Elias, a veteran of a dozen covert operations, carried the weight of command like a second skin. His men trusted him without question. His orders were law, his calm under pressure almost mythic. The world above might have been falling apart, but down here he was the one steady hand in the storm. Then she arrived, transferred from the intelligence division without warning, carrying a sealed packet of orders from command. She was young but not green. Her uniform immaculate, her eyes sharp but heavy with something unspoken, something Elias recognized but couldn't name. From the moment she stepped aboard, the air shifted. The crew noticed her quiet precision, the way she studied every console, every face, every subtle gesture. She didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't smile, didn't flinch at the constant hum of the nuclear core behind the walls. Yet beneath her composure, Elias sensed something restless, a weight she carried like an anchor chained to her heart. When he asked about her previous postings, she only said, "Black Site Echo," and silence fell over the room. That place was a ghost. No one returned from Echo unless the mission was over, or failed. For the first 24 hours, Elias tolerated her presence. Orders were orders, and command must have had a reason for placing her there. But when she began accessing classified subsystems, running encrypted diagnostics that even his XO couldn't decode, patience turned to suspicion, the crew whispered. A woman aboard a combat submarine was rare enough. One with invisible clearance and no background was something else entirely. Elias confronted her in the command deck, his voice low but edged like a blade. "Lieutenant Hale," he said, "until I know who you answer to, you're off my sub. You'll be transferred at the next resupply rendezvous." She looked at him for a long, quiet moment, a look that didn't plead, didn't argue, but almost mourned something he couldn't yet see. And then she said it. Word for word, tone for tone, she recited the 6-digit mission code that had been burned into his mind years ago, a code that didn't exist in any database. Phoenix 09 Delta. It was the operation that had cost him everything, his team, his faith, and his younger brother Daniel, who had vanished in the Arctic 12 years ago when their sub went dark under enemy pursuit. Only Elias had survived. Command had declared everyone else lost. Hearing that code now from her lips was like hearing the ocean whisper back the name of a ghost. The room fell silent. Every crew member froze, watching their commander's face drain of color. Mara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she whispered, "I was told you'd understand." Elias dismissed the crew and locked the control room. The air between them was electric with grief and confusion. Through halting words, she told him what no report had ever revealed. Daniel Grant had survived that mission. He'd been captured by an enemy force during extraction and held in a secret facility. She was part of the retrieval program that had tried and failed to bring him back. The mission was buried to protect national interests, and Daniel's name was erased from all records. Only one classified channel remained linked to his last transmission, and she had found it. She wasn't there by chance. She was there because his brother had left a final message before disappearing again, one meant only for Elias. "Tell him I finished it." The words hit Elias like a depth charge to the chest. For years he had carried the guilt of that night, the failed evacuation, the icy waters swallowing his brother's voice. To learn he had lived, fought, and maybe even died again, it reopened every scar he'd sealed with duty. But as Mara spoke, a deeper truth surfaced. She hadn't just been Daniel's messenger. She had been part of the same experimental crew that had trained under him years later, long after Elias thought him dead. Daniel had become her mentor, her protector, even something close to family. He had saved her life once, and she had sworn to complete his mission, to deliver the message to the only man he still believed in. Elias struggled to breathe under the weight of it. The mission Daniel spoke of, Project Phoenix, was a covert operation meant to neutralize a rogue satellite weapon buried under the Arctic ice, a weapon capable of triggering global catastrophe. Command had abandoned it after the presumed loss of the Leviathan's sister vessel, the Nautilus. But now, evidence suggested the weapon had reactivated and only those with Phoenix clearance could reach it. That's why Mara was here. That's why Command had sent her to find Elias, the only surviving officer who still knew the access sequence. For the next 48 hours, Elias and Mara worked side by side, decoding Daniel's encrypted transmissions, retracing his steps through fragmented data and ghost signals. The bond between them deepened in the quiet moments, when the rest of the crew slept and the only sound was the rhythmic heartbeat of the engines. Elias began to see fragments of Daniel in her, the same stubbornness, the same loyalty, the same haunted eyes that carried the cost of too many battles. She wasn't just his brother's legacy. She was proof that even in the darkness, something of him had survived. When the Leviathan reached the Arctic perimeter, everything went wrong. A sonar ping revealed an approaching vessel, unregistered, hostile. The enemy had been tracking them. Depth charges erupted through the black water, shaking the hull. Alarms blared. Panic rippled through the crew, but Elias remained the anchor, issuing calm, decisive orders. Amid the chaos, Mara continued uploading Daniel's final coordinates into the navigation core, guiding them to the precise location of the buried control module. Then the impact came, a direct hit near the aft section. The power grid flickered. They were losing depth control. Elias had one choice: surface and risk detection or dive deeper into crushing pressure to complete the mission. He chose the impossible. The Leviathan descended into the darkness beyond operational limits. Metal groaned, systems failed, but they pressed on. As the water outside grew colder and the lights dimmed, Mara's voice steadied him. She spoke Daniel's words, the same ones he had told her years ago. Courage isn't about surviving the storm, Commander. It's about steering through it, no matter what it takes. In the final moments, they reached the coordinates. The satellite's relay pulse came online, and together they input the shutdown sequence. But it required dual biometric confirmation, Daniel's and Elias's. Mara looked at him, tears in her eyes, and revealed the final secret. Daniel had linked his own genetic code to hers before his last mission. He knew you'd never stop looking for him, she whispered. He wanted me to help you finish it. With trembling hands, she placed her palm on the console beside his. The system recognized the match. The code executed. The pulse died. The weapon went silent. When they surfaced hours later, battered and barely afloat, dawn broke over the Arctic horizon like a promise kept. Elias stood on the deck, the freezing wind biting his face, and for the first time in years, he let the tears fall. He looked at Mara, the living echo of his brother's courage, and knew that Daniel hadn't just sent her with a message. He had sent her to remind him that hope, like the ocean, never truly dies. It just runs deeper than most can see. As the rescue ships approached, Elias whispered a quiet thank you to the waves, to his brother, to the ghosts of the deep that had carried him this far. And somewhere beneath that vast, endless sea, he felt Daniel's presence one last time, steady, proud, and finally at peace. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe that courage and love can echo even through the darkest depths, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need a reminder that even the deepest losses can give birth to light. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that some bonds are powerful enough to cross even the ocean between life and death?